I've just caught this little bantam, this little Pekin bantam, and today I thought I'd talk to you all about poultry, all about chickens. Now, all domesticated animals came originally from wild animals, so pigs from wild boar, cattle from the ancient auroch, we've got the wild horses that created all of the horses today, and of course in dogs it's the wolf or the wild African dog. And poultry came from the Indonesian jungle fowl, or mainly they did, and they've now been bred for different shapes and colours and uses all over the world. And this is a bantam. You get bantams, standards, which are a bit bigger, and then larger breeds. And we'll have a look at some of the differences today. The Pekin here is a beautiful little hen, lays quite small eggs, so not great for your boiled egg in the morning, but really is a fancy fowl, something to have in your garden as a pet, to admire and look at. And they come in all sorts of different colours. Gorgeous little friendly hens. And when you're holding a chicken, what you do is you put your hand out like that, put the two legs in between your hand, and then the hen will sit on your hand. And this is how they'd hold them when they're showing them. And there we are, she'll sit there nice and comfortably for you. At her front, that bulge is the crop. What they do is they eat the grain, that goes into their crop, that then goes down into their gizzard and it crunches it up, and then they absorb all the nutrients from that grain. So that bulge is where she's been eating lots of grain today. And for many, many years, we had a dual purpose animal. So for both meat and for eggs. And now, today, we have the meat breeds, the broilers they're called, and the egg layers. And they're very, very different animals. An egg-laying bird, specific for laying eggs and doesn't produce hardly any meat at all. At the end of their life, they generally go into things like cat food. But the meat bird is bred and grows very, very fast. So a meat chicken, from being hatched to oven ready, only takes about 35 to 40 days. So it's very, very quick. But these more old-fashioned fancy fowl, as you might like to call them, are very slow growing, don't lay lots of eggs, so not particularly productive, just gorgeous to look at. When you're keeping poultry, you need to give them ad lib food, so they've got food in front of them all the time. Usually you can buy chicken pellets, or you can mix that in with a little bit of wheat. They need fresh water at all times, and then a hut of some description to keep them in at night, to keep them away from predators, foxes and stoats and weasels. And so this is where we keep our hens. This is the feeder, where they can get in and peck away at the feeder. This stops them getting in and scratching it and wasting the food. They're bedded down with straw, and then there's a perch for them to fly up to and perch at night. And then, of course, chickens being egg-laying birds, you need a nest box. So the nest box is at the back here with easy access. Just undo the clips so you can get to the eggs. And here we are. If you have a little look in here, we've got one of our hens who, this is a frizzle, and you can see why, because she's got frizzly feathers, and there's her eggs. Beautiful little Pekin and frizzle eggs. And this little frizzle has actually gone broody. What happens is they lay a clutch of eggs, and then they start to sit on them and warm them up. And it takes 21 days from those eggs being warmed up, incubated, to the chicks hatching out. That is, if they're fertile, and they'll only be fertile if they've got a cockerel with them. Another breed we've got in here, if I can catch it. Oh, little hen, quite difficult to catch. There we are, is the Padovana. Look at these gorgeous things. So the Padovana is an Italian breed, quite closely related to the Polish, because they have this sort of pom-pom on their head and a little beard, and a beautiful fancy fowl. I'll just get it to sit on my hand, like I showed you. And this one is a chamois colour. absolutely beautiful with these laced feathers. And the Padovana come various different colours. A lovely looking bird. So we bought these last winter, and we love having our chickens and waterfowl free ranging, so they're out in the paddocks here at the Cotswold Farm Park so that people can enjoy seeing them walking around. But sadly, bird flu hit last December, and we were instructed by government to shut all our waterfowl and birds, all our poultry, up into sheds to keep them away from wild birds, because bird flu, or avian flu, is spread by migratory birds, quite often waterfowl, that come from the north down through England in the UK and through into Europe, and they carry bird flu with them and infect wild birds, but also particularly domestic birds. And so a lot of our commercial chicken and poultry units were affected by bird flu. Once it gets into the sheds, it's very, very contagious, and the first signs you see are the birds start to look sick, they stop laying their eggs, and then they die very, very quickly. And so what happens is that the government move in and they slaughter all the hens in the shed just to try and clear out the disease. So it's absolutely horrendous for the people who have got it on their farms. So across the country, not only the commercial poultry farmers, but all of us people who keep chickens really as pets or as rare breeds enthusiasts had to shut all their birds up. And it's only been in the last month that we've been able to let them back out again. But we have to have foot dips, so we dipped our feet on the way in, and we have to be careful, you know, keeping an eye on them, making sure they're staying healthy. So there we are, there's the Padovana. Can you see? Where's your eyes? They're in there somewhere. Gorgeous birds. So now let's go and see some bigger chickens, or what are known as standard birds. In this enclosure at the Cotswold Farm Park, we've got some of our other breeds of poultry. And some of the chickens we've got around here are much larger than those little bantams. And there's a cockerel here, I'll try and catch him. Now then, fella. He's quite lively and he's pretty big. So this is a Brahma, and he's a very large breed of chicken. He's not the biggest. There is one known as the Jersey Giant, and the Brahma has these feathery feet and comes all sorts of beautiful colours, magnificent looking chickens that originally came from India but then were really sort of specialised in America before coming over to the UK. And although they're enormous, the hens lay reasonable size eggs, not as big as you might expect. They just sort of lay a normal size egg. And a lot of these rare breeds will only lay in the spring and during the early summer, and then not for the rest of the year. So they're not prolific layers like the commercial egg-laying birds. So in the sunshine, these feathers really glisten. And because all chickens come from the jungle fowl, those wild chickens would have had to fight for the territory and try and impress the hens to gather them together. And they have these bright red wattles, they're called, and these feathers that shine. And the dark ones here have this sort of iridescence to them. And in a chicken's eyesight, these really shine out. Oh, the wind's getting up your feathers, mate, isn't it? There we go. And with fancy fowl and the rare breeds, each different breed of chicken will have a different purpose, but also a different standard. So if you went to a poultry show that happened all over the country at a lot of the agricultural shows, each breed will have their standards that you have to try and breed to and stick to. And this Brahma cock would be a very good one. I reckon he'd do quite well in the show ring. And if I just show you his feet, if he'll let me. So they've got feathery feet on the Brahma, but the cockerels have these spurs. And wild chickens would have fought using their spurs. They jump up and try and stab each other with their spurs. And going back centuries now, a lot of cocks would have been used for cockfighting, and they would have grown these long spurs or even put sharp metal spikes over their spurs so that they hurt each other. Absolutely horrible sport, which is now completely illegal over here. I'm very pleased it's banned. But no fighting for you, mate, is there? You've got your lovely wives in here and you live a very happy life. Over in the corner here, we've got some waterfowl. So waterfowl are ducks and geese. And here we have some ducks. We've got an apple yard here, but the little black ones are Shetland ducks. And the Shetland are a really gorgeous creature. They're very good at getting around and dappling in the mud and searching out for bugs and insects. They're little foragers. And interestingly, the Shetland duck obviously comes from the Shetland Islands, and up there they've got a whole array of animals that are named after the Shetlands. So you've got Shetland ducks, Shetland sheep, Shetland cattle, Shetland geese. Then you've also got the Shetland pony, of course, and Shetland dog. So 6 creatures, all named Shetland, that originate from the Shetland Islands. And they're lovely. They're scampering off now, those little Shetland ducks. In here we've got some of our commercial chickens, and these are a hybrid hen, and unlike the rare breeds, these will lay lots of eggs. So a rare breed might lay 100, 120 eggs in a year for you. These birds will virtually lay an egg a day, so 320 odd in a year. And you can tell the health of a chicken by the way it looks. So as long as they're fully feathered and their feathers have got a nice sheen to them, and their cone, the bit around their face, is nice and bright and red, and they're bright in the eye, and they've got nice clean nostrils, then they're a healthy bird. So this will be a prime example of a really healthy looking chicken. So I'll just see if I can pick one up for you. Before I do that, there's one there having a nice dust bath. She's getting in the dirt and flicking the dust over herself. It's a way that they naturally want to get rid of the mites that might be on them, that attach to the dust and fall out. It's their way of having a bath. And these hybrid hens are very friendly. So here we are. There we are, there's a perfect hen. So she's got a nice bright cone, lovely bright eyes, fully feathered. And then what you can do is tip them up and look around their vent, around their bottoms, to see if they've got any lice. So that's nice and clean. She's lice free in there. It's a good way to get to the skin to see there's no lice in there. She's a perfect hen in every way, and will be laying lots of eggs. Aren't you a beautiful girl? Now this is a interesting story. We've got an Indian game cockerel here, which are really tough breed that were originally bred for cockfighting. So you can see he's got really strong legs and very good to eat Indian game. But he's with a duck, and the Indian game cockerel and Desmond the duck are best mates. They're inseparable. They go everywhere together. And little Desmond here, we had him in the incubator on the farm park, and we were hatching out chickens and duck eggs. And unfortunately, all the chickens hatched out, but only one of the duck eggs, and that was little Desmond. So he grew up with chickens, and now he thinks he's a chicken. And so he's just fallen in love with the Indian game cockerel, and now they just follow each other around. So there they are. They just keep each other company. And in fact, I did get Desmond the duck and put him on the pond one day so he could have a swim. And he just jumped out the pond as if to say, "Don't throw me in there, I'm a chicken, I'll drown." But he seems happy enough. When I get talking to people about the idea that they might keep a few farm animals, if you've got a little garden or somewhere to keep some animals, I quite often recommend starting with chickens, because they're such lovely sociable creatures. These hens are quite inquisitive, they're lovely to look at, and of course with the rare breeds and fancy fowl they come all sorts of different shapes and colours and sizes. And for children they're lovely creatures to keep, because you learn the responsibilities of the husbandry, of looking after them, feed and water and care. but also you have the excitement of collecting the eggs in the morning and then doing some cooking at home. And I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I was brought up on the farm and have had chickens all my life, and they're very special, really.